Welcome back into the Pig Trail Show and welcome into another Hog Hoops Report. As always, that's Kevin McPherson. I'm Jacob Morris. And Kevin, recency bias, it only lets us remember the Alabama game, but we have to say we're coming after a 1-1 week for the Razorbacks. They take down Texas on Wednesday, make it 2 straight road wins for the first time since 2023. And then fall yesterday in a really odd game against Alabama, 85-81, the Tide beat the Hogs. After all that, Arkansas covers, trailing by 18 in the second half. It was an up-and-down game, but Arkansas goes on a 21-2 run to get back in this thing. And it wasn't just style points near the end, Kevin. Arkansas had a real chance to win this late against the Tide.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Look, it wasn't just an 18-point second-half lead. It was 75-57 with 6.5 minutes to go. So it wasn't like Arkansas had a lot of time. And then the Hogs, similar to what they did at home against South Carolina, remember, they trailed by 15 in the second half of that game and just put the hammer down, getting to the basket, getting offensive rebounds, getting to the free throw line. And we saw Arkansas, we saw Big Z playing out of his mind. We saw Adu Thero doing Adu Thero bully ball things. We saw Billy Richmond having his best game as a Razorback, I think, getting out in transition. We saw Nelly Davis thaw out in that second half and in that run. He had a big transition three in his own right in that stretch. DJ Wagner knocking down his free throws, not a great shooting night for him, but he did go 6 of 6 at the line. And his last 2 free throws, if I recall correctly, brought Arkansas within a 1-possession deficit. It was 81-78 with just a little over a minute. Arkansas has a good initial defensive possession, and then Grant Nelson gets an offensive rebound and a putback. It's back up to a 2-possession lead, 5 points. And you're inside of a minute. Z gets a reverse layup with about 38 seconds left. It's back to a 3-point game. Arkansas got as close as 2, but it needed Big Z to hit 2 free throws instead of 1 out of 2 to get it to 1, because now you're in if you don't get a steal, you got a foul game. And there's a huge difference between a 2-point deficit and a 3-point deficit. And that's where Arkansas ended up when Texas is, intentionally fouling so the Arkansas can't take a 3, and that forced Z into that free throw situation. So had he made both, after the Texas player missed 1 of 2, Arkansas would have only been down 2. Excuse me, who did I say?
Texas.
I told you I got a cold, man.
You're battling through it. It's a flu
Alabama
game.
Player, good catch. But Arkansas even fumbled the opportunity on the missed free throw by Alabama. Chris Youngblood, I remember who it was. Out of bounds, and Alabama retained possession. So Arkansas put itself in a position to win. I went through all that play-by-play at the end to say they put themselves in position to win against a team that is projected to go back to the Final Four. Bama is the 3rd-ranked team in the country. They're projected as a 1 seed, which means they're going to be favored in their bracket, which means if you win your bracket, you're part of the bracket, you're in the Final Four. A team that could very well by tomorrow be ranked number 1 in the country. Maybe not, but both Auburn and Duke just ahead of them lost. So you had a chance after being down 18. It showed a lot of character, a lot of fight, fearlessness late, as Calipari framed it. But I like what this Arkansas team's doing, because we remember midweek they did go to Texas and win that big road game. They renewed the rivalry rudely in Austin against the Longhorns, and that was a quad 1 win. Prior to that, we know they got the big quad 1 win over a ranked then number 12 Kentucky team. Arkansas had won 3 out of 4 before this near miss, heartbreaking ending. This team looks like today an NCAA tournament team. The road resume, the away from home resume is really good. No bad quad losses on the resume. Arkansas will have 1 more potentially against LSU, which will now be a quad 3 result midweek next week, or midweek this coming week. So you got to avoid a bad loss. So that's not must win, it's must not lose. But this team is building an NCAA tournament resume and looks the part. I wouldn't have said they looked the part down 18 at home to Bama with 6.5 minutes to go. But the way they came back, I'm not into moral victories, but you put it together with the 3 wins in 4 games and those 2 road quad 1 wins, Arkansas is trending in the right direction. By the way, the Hogs did not fall in net. I promise you, had they lost by double digits in that game, they would have slipped a little bit. Bama's a top 5, top 6 rated net team. I did say the right team, didn't I, Bama?
You did.
But Arkansas is still at number 43, so they didn't lose any ground there. And when you look at what's ahead, LSU, at home. Arkansas can win that, should win that, will be favored to win that. Brutal road stretch. You and I have talked
Mm-hmm.
about this so much. It's about to get here with Texas A&M and then Auburn. And
Gosh.
then the last 5 games are manageable. A couple of home games, Missouri, Texas. Missouri's really good. We know Texas is not a slouch, but you get those at home. You're on the road for South Carolina. That's a tough place to play. They're close in all their games, but they still can't get a win. Vandy's a good team, has been ranked. That's a road
Mm-hmm.
game. And then you're home for Mississippi State, another game I think is winnable. Arkansas, I think, can get the work done. I think they need just 4 more wins to probably take themselves, even if they're on the bubble, in onto the correct part of it and be projected in as an at-large, even if it's a play-in. But maybe this team can do more than 4 more wins. I know they're only 3-7. A week or so ago, we couldn't figure out where the wins were going to come, but they've proven they can do it. And even last night, putting themselves in position against a team who's not just a Final Four contender. Most of those guys played in one last year.
Mm-hmm.
They've only got one league loss, tied for first place with Auburn in the SEC. So this was not chopped liver that you fell behind to, but it was certainly a great comeback. And Arkansas looked like it had had enough of Bama having its way on its home court, and found a way to give itself a chance to win.
Yeah, yeah, and if they win 4 games, 4-4, people are talking about 7-11, that mark that would give you an opportunity to be
Right.
right on the right side of the bubble, and then you forget, or maybe you don't, then you go to Nashville and you have. With the way the SEC is at a neutral site, you got more chances for quad one or definitely quad two and quad one opportunities as well in the SEC tournament. But I think you made a good point about the standpoint that Cal talked a lot about, this team, you said, they decided they had enough of Alabama having its way. And he was very complimentary of his team's fight. You were in that press conference as well, but he talked about the frustrating aspect of, he came in and said, we just got to play fearless. They're the ones that don't have to lose. We have everything to gain, right? And so, a moral victory from Arkansas playing the way they did to get back in the game, but it was, you would have wanted to see them play that free. It's almost like they got to the point where they were down 18, right? And just said, well, we got nothing else to do. We might as well just play free. You would like to see him play that whole way, but I think that's the key point where I understand where, people might not want to be in for moral victories right now, but when you pair it with how this team has played in the last couple of games against Kentucky and against Texas, that's a bona fide national championship contender. That you came back and made it a game like that. That was a continued positive step forward. It is heading in the right direction for Arkansas, and that's the key, even if they didn't get the win yesterday.
I 100% agree because these are the kind of teams you're measuring yourself against. Arkansas is not a Final Four contender, but Alabama had had its way for the first 33, 34 minutes. And most of that was getting to the basket and scoring in front of it. Arkansas did a good job defending the three. The Razorbacks were better at the free throw line. In the first half, Arkansas couldn't stop Bama's attack getting to the basket and finishing. But Arkansas was winning the hustle plays, winning the turnover battle, winning the offense rebounding battle. Texas kind of evened that up in the second half. And so you're wondering on those parts, how did Arkansas do this? And Bama's the kind of team that will put its foot on your throat typically when they're in control that late in a game. So it says a lot about Arkansas's character. Again, people are going to say, oh, moral victory. No, this team's coming off back-to-back quad one road wins, against teams projected in the NCAA tournament. And then this is the way that you close that game. I think it says a lot. This is starting to look like an NCAA tournament worthy team. They've still got to win enough games to get there, but they're starting to look the part. And I can't believe I'm saying this knowing that Boogie Flan, arguably the best player on the team, has not been around for this run, and that your 2 veteran big men, one coming off an all SEC season and a all SEC defensive team season, and another one, Trevor Brazile, who at one point in time was thought around here to be a top 5 player in the SEC. You're getting very little production from those guys. And yet this is what this team is doing. They've gone from a 9 deep to an 8 deep. And then with their 2 veteran big men effectively not being effective, you're down to kind of 6 guys you're rolling with. So it's very impressive. I do think when we look at how great Alabama was coming into this game shooting 2-point shots, 60% on the season, and they don't shoot mid-range shots. They get in that paint and they work you until they get you out of position so they can get an easy score. It's like synchronized swimmers, precise, a
Mhm.
surgeon's scalpel. I mean, it is impressive. And they shot even better than 60% against the Hogs, 29 of 43, 60 over 67%. And yet Arkansas still found a way to take control of that game late, not to the point where they won it, but to the point where Bama's have to call timeouts and questioning,
Yeah.
how are we going to get over the finish line with a win now? That to me says a lot about where Arkansas can still go. 8 more league games left. The SEC tournament. There's a lot in front of this Razorback team. A lot to feel good about. And again, the win at Texas. There's no better feeling for an old guy like me that's been around it when it was a Southwest Conference
Yeah.
rivalry. They always talk about the football part of it. The basketball, it was typically Arkansas, Texas at the top of the Southwest Conference during my lifetime. A lot of huge games over the years, whether it was Eddie Sutton and the triplets, Nolan Richardson, what he had going. This is a beautiful thing to get this rivalry back. I hope the SEC figures out a way to give a round robin
Mm.
every year, home and away for Kentucky and for Texas. You book in at those road wins against those two teams. That's who I'd like to see moving forward. Arkansas play twice a year. I doubt that happens. Probably not, but that'd be great.
Yeah, it seems silly to not do that. I mean, this year it was such a home run, specifically. I mean, we've talked about that ad nauseum. I don't know how you mess the Kentucky Arkansas not making that a home and home sort of situation. That just didn't make a lot of sense. But those are two games, especially having the Texas rivalry back. It was fun for them. Watching the TV broadcast, them flashing old clips and stuff like that from old games. But you mentioned obviously the damage that Alabama did in the paint. I think they finished with 56 points in the paint. To your point about them getting downhill, it's what they do really well. But I think another element of, we talk about this team trending in the right direction and improving, and I get it, they lost yesterday, but something that was interesting was we were so worried going into the Kentucky game about this team losing the battle in transition because fast break points just hadn't been there for an Arkansas team that claimed it wanted to play fast. They went to Lexington and won the fast break battle 18-5, and then you come back against an Alabama team that plays faster than anybody, top 20 in the country in transition points, tops in the country in scoring offense, over 90 points a game, and Arkansas, they gave up a few bunnies, but they win the fast break battle there 12-6 as well. And that's a small specific stat I'm isolating and pointing out, but it's an example of what you're talking about, how this is such a night and day difference with this team from what we saw earlier. And that goes across the board. It goes with fast break points, but also goes just with, it just looks like this team is having more fun. And it sounds simple to just throw it out that way, but you have Cal coming off the bench, smiling, high-fiving Big Z after big plays, and this team just seems more cohesive, and it's trending in the right direction at the right time. It's exciting to think about what this team could do with 8 games left on the SEC schedule.
Yeah, I agree. And look, you mentioned the transition. That was Arkansas' strength in non-conference, and it hadn't really shown up in SEC
No.
play. So maybe there's something there. They're getting more steals than they were for a while now as part of generating turnovers. I think the continued problem, though, was that second half when Arkansas had some self-inflicted wounds and the turnover margin got a little closer.
Mm-hmm.
Bama actually ends up outscoring Arkansas in points off turnovers 15-13. So the fast break was nice. You were +6, you doubled them up. But then the other part is, can you clean those things up a little bit? We mentioned we talked about all those 2-point shots. Yeah, 56 points in the paint for Bama, +20. Arkansas only scored 36 in the paint.
Yeah.
But the bench scoring was also a +20 for Bama, 31-11. And so we've just raved about what Arkansas' small group of guys is able to do, but you're effectively got one bench guy who's showing up game in and game out. That's Billy Richmond III, your true freshman. Hey, great.
Yeah.
That's great. But that's not enough in a game like that. I compared last night on my HogMillNet YouTube Live post game that I did from Bud Walton Arena. In some ways, this Bama team reminds me of some of Nolan's Richardson's teams at Arkansas. They can go 10 deep.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can't even tell if there's a drop off or not because of the way the system works. Everybody can look good, and even against good teams, it's hard to match up with and hard to really solve some of the things that they do so well because they're so good at it. It's a different era of basketball. I'm not saying these Bama teams are as good as Nolan's teams, but relative to this era, they're really good, and his teams back then were really good, and it was kind of that same quality. So for Arkansas to basically go at this team and get back in it with 6 guys, again, that's another way to frame it. And getting outscored 20 points off your bench by a 20-point margin, and you still had a chance to win, says that Arkansas, with what it's got to work with, is figuring out ways to be a good team.
Yeah, you make a great point on Alabama, just from the standpoint that they're unselfish. It is, they find a matchup that works and then they go ahead and exploit that matchup. You know, you think Mark Sears, All-American guard and all that stuff, and you know, he had his moments. He had a big layup late to extend the lead back out to 5, but you know, he had 11 points and wasn't particularly efficient. But you know, they got Chris Youngblood working. You know, he's a 10-point a game scorer, but he comes in and he scores 15 because they found a matchup and they went at it over and over again. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention Big Z. Career high 27 points for the Croatian, and I mean, he was at the point where he was just trying stuff. He had a step back fadeaway in the corner, a 3 that when he shot, it was one of those, you know, no, yes type of threes where I was sitting on the baseline and I think I let out an audible like, what is he doing? And then he just cashed it. Place went nuts, right? And you know, such an impressive performance from him in such an interesting season, because he started out, you know, he's hitting threes and then we kind of saw him disappear for a little bit. It was, you know, he wasn't hitting shots, he wasn't playing as much, he was fouling a ton, and now he's back in full force. And yesterday was an unbelievable performance. Emotion, getting the crowd involved, everything you want to see from a guy like that.
Well, and you could tell what he works on in his off time, right? Because that step
That was
side
ridiculous.
corner, that's what he's been working on. I'm going to tell you a little sneaky thing that stood out to me, though, from his performance yesterday. Yeah, he was knocking down threes. He got the game off to a good start. He set a double pick. He had a high screen, a middle screen. Then he set another one high. Then he rolled the basket. And Arkansas got a mismatch out of that. Hit a guard on him. They dumped it down to him. He was on the baseline. He turned and knocked down a little 10-footer. And Arkansas led 2-0. Didn't lead for long. That was it. That was the only first half lead. But here's what he did in this game, aside from being wild from 3 and doing some block. You know, he had 4 blocks at Texas. He had 3 yesterday. So and now he's a better rebounder than he was early in the season when Jonas Adu wasn't available. Trevor Brazile missed a game or 2, wasn't playing a lot, and Z was it. Remember, he was scoring some and hitting threes, but it wasn't a lot in the paint. And he wasn't rebounding a whole lot. 7 rebounds last night, so he continues to increase what his average is. You know, had the 12 rebounds against Texas. But what stood out to me was I think he had 5 buckets at close range in this game.
Yeah.
Outside of those threes, and when he got the ball on his entry passes, he got really aggressive. Usually, he doesn't want any contact, and he just tries to shoot over somebody with touch. There was still an element of that, but he actually aggressively got himself in closer immediately. We see a dude, Thero, when you pass the ball to him, he's already in attack mode as the ball's coming to him, he's already moving where he wants to go, and it gives him even more bully ball momentum. But we saw Z doing some similar stuff. They've been working with him, and he was a little bit more aggressive in his approach on the catch, playing around the basket. I thought that stood out to me as well, because it's not one thing he needs to be good at. 3-point shooting, great. He's a good perimeter passer as well. You know, he's getting better on the defensive glass. He's blocking even more shots lately. But I like to see the work around the basket from a big man. Hey, I'm old school too, so I'm like, where did all that go? Where is it? He showed a little bit last night.
Yeah. I think the big thing with that as well is he just looks so much more confident. I saw the same thing you did, and it's a great point about him just being more physical. And it was 2 plays for me. It was early in the first half. They ran a handoff action with him where he was on the right side, and I haven't seen him all year. He had the confidence to fake the handoff, split essentially a double team, attack the hoop, and then go up straight instead of fading away. He scores. And then even the late play, the last one he scored to get within 3, the reverse layup, all year we've seen him fade away hook shot. Instead, he showed us something we haven't seen all year, a reverse with the right hand. a really impressive game from him. And
Yeah.
I was also so impressed by Billy Richmond. I mean, he's the guy that he gives 130% effort level every single time he's on the court. And I love what he brings to this Arkansas team. And he had a great sequence as well in that second half. He obviously had that awesome dunk, but he had one sequence where he's playing defense and he got, quite frankly, 2 really questionable foul calls. And you could see he was frustrated. On one possession, picked up 2 fouls. Kind of just nods, looks over at the coaching staff, takes a deep breath. Next possession comes down. Beautiful crossover, doesn't settle off the step back, attacks, had that nice little double clutch layup, and then the next possession draws a travel from Mark Sears, an All-American guard, taking that assignment head on. Just really impressive what he's brought to this Razorback team, and just a really, a role that maybe he didn't imagine as a guy that highly touted, but he's taking advantage of every minute that he gets.
Yeah, and he and Thero, you've got a 1-2.
Yeah.
Attack the rim at all costs. They're not going to lay it up. If someone's challenging them going to the rim, they're going to make a statement. And I think those are microcosms of all the other plays you just described. They have that kind of confidence and belief, and then they've got the goods. They've got the athleticism, they've got the size and length to deliver. But the little things, you're right. Even Carter Knox, who had an off night, you've seen him learn how to use that big, strong frame lately. He had a really good stretch there until last night. In these 3 wins and 4 games before the Bama game. So both of those freshmen, but you mentioned, well, let's talk Billy Richmond because he had the really good game last night. You mentioned some of the specifics that he was doing, and it tells you that, the old saying, but once you start getting closer to March, freshmen are no longer freshmen, they're sophomores. Well, not for everybody. Some guys never get it. And I see both Richmond and Knox starting to figure out their roles and how to play and make those a plus for the team. Let's not forget in the previous 4 games I mentioned, it was kind of Knox in that starting lineup, averaging 10 points, nearly 5 rebounds. Richmond was maybe playing 9 or 10 minutes, but when he was on the floor, it was those little things you just described to help win plays. And his box score and his impact was really big in small minute packages. Last night, he's on the court like a starter finishing the game, playing one of probably his best game as a Razorback. And you're starting to see his work and just being ready, paying off because, man, you're right. He did some good things defensively. He did some good things offensively. He had a little mid-range shot. He had an and one. This guy, to me, is coming. Carter Knox is, and it's part of why, even if Arkansas is only relying on 6 guys right now, while they wait on Adu and TB to maybe plug back in. Remember, those guys were really good against Michigan in that first quad 1 win. And Big Z, when he was on the court in that game, was killing them defensively, had to get him back out. The scripts flip, but the freshmen have steadily gotten better. The first one we talked about forever was Boogie Flan. We don't have that option now other than to say he's on the bench cheering on the team. What we're talking about now are these other 2, and, man, they're really starting to help Arkansas put this thing together.
Yeah, I am so partial to Billy Richmond. And I mean this in the most complimentary way. He is a psychopath on defense. The way that he gets after people, and I mean, just being on the court level, you can see it. The way he is jawing at people, and he cares big time. And I think that's, we're going on and on and on here, but I remember after the Florida game, DJ Wagner had a big dunk, and in the post-game press conference, Cal, he pointed that out, and he said, after DJ did that, he yelled to the crowd, he got that involved, and he said, why are we not doing that? Why are we not more like that? Why don't we love to play? Why aren't we playing with passion? And you're starting to see this Arkansas team, Z, DJ Wagner, everybody, it's beginning to look like a much more passionate group, and looks like a group that is just loving every moment of playing together. And it's an awesome thing, and it makes this team really dangerous with the talent that they have. Quickly, before we go, I know you do want to touch on a little bit of recruiting stuff. Nate Amena, 5-star, small forward, power forward, depending on how you look at him. A big-time recruit, a big-time target for Coach Cal in Virginia, visiting the 5-star forward.
Back out to see him. I mean, Cal has spent a lot of time out in Virginia since September when the current NCAA recruiting period opened back up, which tells me one thing. Cal is not wasting his time on any player that he doesn't believe he's going to get on campus for a visit and have a shot at landing him. And when it's Calipari, if you get him on campus, it's better than just a shot at landing somebody. He's got a great closing track record.
Yeah.
But this is a guy that I was told, I've been reporting this for a while. I do talk a lot of recruiting on my Hogville Net YouTube live segments. I did that yesterday. morning before I went up to Fayetteville, and we talked about a mint. And I've got a couple of sources that are saying, it seems like it might be down to Duke and Louisville. Watch out for Notre Dame as a dark horse. I've had another source connected with the NBA that been asking me since December, hey, I've heard a mint's coming to Arkansas and going to try to be up there for a game day. Take a visit when Arkansas basketball is hosting a game. So we've been waiting. I never could confirm when that might be. So we still don't even know if there's a visit. This is a spring decision coming. Arkansas is in his final 11. He's taken most of his visits. There's word that he might visit Kentucky midweek for a Tuesday night game when the Wildcats host the Tennessee Volunteers. Arkansas hosts LSU at home on Wednesday. So I don't know if there's something in the works to get him in soon. I don't know if he's ever going to visit. But Calipari, look, just read the room. If that guy's continually to go out to see this guy, he's in it for the long haul, or he believes that he's going to get him in for a visit. Arkansas has home dates also. We kind of went through it after LSU, a couple of road games, and later in the month, they're home for Missouri on a Saturday, Texas for a midweek, and I believe Mississippi State's a Saturday to close out the regular season in early March. So you've got several more home game dates, 4 more, where you could accommodate that. And it's not to say he has to visit when you're hosting a game. That's just one source I had that said he heard that. So if that's how if it does play out that he visits, those would be the opportunities to do it for him to attend a Razorback game. And there's obviously any other time he can work it in his schedule, and Arkansas wants to do it. I mean, Arkansas has hosted visitors, at least Muhammad Silla on a Sunday.
Yeah.
When they were about to go take a road trip, I think that was to Miami the next day, and they had him in for like a day. And it wasn't for a game. So, who knows how it shakes out. But the fact that Calipari is staying, and this guy's rated top 5, Jacob, at 5-star. He's not your garden variety 5-star. They're all 5 stars or 5 stars for the most part. But he's top 5 in that 2025 class, which is deep and extra loaded. So it means a little bit more, in my opinion, but we'll see what happens there. I'm not sure until I hear concrete evidence that he's going to visit that I'm as confident as Calipari is. But what does it matter how confident I am? He's the one making these trips. So he thinks something might be cooking in the right way for the Razorbacks there.
I never want to hear the phrase garden variety 5-star out of your mouth again, Kevin. All right.
I know.
We're getting spoiled out here. All right. But
that's Cal. He's like, all right, I'll take a back end 5-star if I have to. But
I guess.
Give me the top 5 guys. No, but he's got 2 guards in this class. This top 5 rated class in the top 10. So that's not garden variety for sure.
And again, there's still a lot left to be seen with immense recruitment. But I mean, you start thinking about, again, right, this is Coach Cal's bread and butter. But if you're going off 24/7, you can pick your recruiting service. You got Acuff at 5, Malik Thomas at 12, and then at 4. And then, Isaiah Seeley's in that class as well, a top 100 guy as well. That'd be a pretty special recruiting class right off the rip. Anything else before we go, Kevin?
It's Super Bowl Sunday.
There you go. There you go.
That's in the air today. I'm trying to get over the sniffles so that I can, focus on something other than my pitiful little self here.
You got a score prediction?
Orange juice and coffee. I don't know if that's a good idea. Coffee to soothe the throat, orange juice because vitamin C is going to kick in immediately and help me shake this thing.
It's all mental at the end of the day. Placebo, get over it somehow. You know what I mean? Well, regardless, we'll let you get out of here. Hopefully you feel a little bit better. Arkansas with LSU coming up on Wednesday, coming off that loss to Alabama. We'll see how the Hogs respond inside Bud Walton. But that's going to do it for this week's Hog Hoops Report. That's Kevin McPherson. I'm Jacob Morris. We'll talk to you next week. More Pig Trail Show coming up after the break.